church desiring and welcoming encouragement and correction from translocal ministries in the fulfillment of these objectives.
So what is it that marks out these ministries as particularly enabled to do this? I mean, obviously it's not simply that they are translocal that makes them so effective. So what is it that makes someone helpful and it makes it appropriate that they have a translocal ministry in that way?
I think it is the gift. So that an evangelist, I think, would tend to be not only working in one local church because he wants to reap, and it's difficult in a normal sized church for an evangelist to be only working there. If he goes on a wider circle of churches, maybe a number of churches that he has an ongoing relationship with, perhaps goes in, does some training, how to do evangelism, maybe comes back X months or a year later, how's that going, can I help you with this? The very gift, the ability to reap, that is better occupied in an itinerant kind of way. Mm-hmm. Certainly some of the ways some men move prophetically,
or women as well?
Yes, men and women working prophetically, absolutely. I think of some wonderful gifted women prophets we have, that they if they know everybody actually, well, I know the whole lot here, how can I bring something that sounds supernatural? Because I know everybody, I know their addresses, I know their birthdays, whatever. But the something of the supernatural element is when Jesus spoke to the woman at the well and said stuff she didn't know, or he had no way of knowing rather, and she said, "You're a prophet, you've told me things I didn't know." And something of the prophetic is not just like a mystery thing, oh, I know your name. That's not the point, really. It is a gift that opens up the possibility of God breaking through. It brings the supernatural through. And many of those gifts work better in a travelling context, and churches benefit from those ministries coming in.
And then obviously the role of someone who would carry an apostolic gifting. And obviously there'd be those who would think, oh, the apostles are finished, no such thing as apostles. What kind of an impact, what positive fruit could you point to as evidence of how those who take seriously the ongoing apostolic role, what kind of fruit they see?
I think Paul says in 1 Corinthians 3, I laid a foundation. And he's not talking theoretically, he's writing to a local church and saying that he did that. So like an architect, that's the word, the Greek word that we get our word architect from, he saw the big picture, helped to put those things in place in Corinth at a certain time. Apostolic work has a lot to do with foundations, making sure foundations are right. So their involvement with the local church will tend to be, especially in its early stage, making sure it's well-founded theologically, relationally, eldership appointment. It's getting things established. Now there's an ongoing role. Paul says you have many fathers, as a caring fatherly. So I'm praying for you. Also he's saying I want you to get caught up with me in what I'm doing further afield. So there's an ongoing relationship. But his initial involvement, it seems to be the most important part, the laying of a foundation and helping that church not to go off on funny tangents sometimes because they didn't start well.
What are the kinds of tangents that churches can drift into without that input, do you think?
I think theological is initially the very obvious high-profile one. It says they built the early church on the apostles' doctrine. They devoted themselves to it. So I think it's doctrinal initially. Paul says, I taught you day and night. I didn't withhold anything you needed to know. I think it's initially the apostles' doctrine that needs to be established. I think also with the appointment of elders, there is an apostolic discernment of people. It's something to do with the gift of God. I think sometimes too apostles can discern if legalism's creeping in or sentimentality, a kind of a Gnosticism. I believe apostolic gift has an ability to see things and to speak into things so as to bring change. Not that they come in and become the pastor, sure. They move on. And I think it's important that we don't expect the apostle to become the pastor of the church. He's going to move and do other things, be travelling. But I think that that's an important role.